First of all, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on Drops of Inspiration again. It's wonderful to have you here, and over to you.
Thank you so much. Okay, hold on one second. Here we go. So first of all, it's very nice to be back. The inspiration group over here, and everybody, it's a bunch of, it's being with friends. It's like talking to a group of friends. That's a lot of fun. It's always fun to be with a group of friends. Who wouldn't want to be with a group of friends, right?
Right.
That's a great opportunity. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, as we start gearing up towards Shavuos a little bit, there's an interesting medrash. And the Torah tells us in Parshas Ve'era that Amram and Yocheved are the parents of Moshe and Aaron. And it's a funny thing, because why does the Torah wait until now to tell me this information, right? We should have known already that Moshe Rabbeinu's parents are Yocheved and Amram. We should have known that right away. This is, Moshe Rabbeinu we're talking about. Why does the Torah wait so long? So another point of interest is the fact that the Torah compares Moshe Rabbeinu to Aaron HaKohen, and the Torah seems to be implying that two of them are equal in terms of their greatness, which is hard to understand because everybody knows that Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest person who ever lived, one of the greatest people who ever lived, definitely greater than Aaron HaKohen. It says, the Ish Moshe, Anav Mod Mikol Adam. Moshe was the most humble man who ever lived. Moshe went to Shemayim 40 days and 40 nights. Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest. And here, the Torah seems to be comparing Aaron HaKohen and Moshe Rabbeinu to one another, which is hard to understand. Right? So, right, even when Moshe Rabbeinu was born, the moment he was born, light shone from his face. He was one of the most unique people ever lived, and yet we're comparing the two of them. Why is that? So, incidentally, talking about Moshe Rabbeinu's greatness, it says about Moshe Rabbeinu, "Ufanai lo yiro," that Moshe Rabbeinu did not see Hashem's face, only his back, whatever that means. Face, the back, kaviyachol, whatever that means. But by Yecheskel Hanavi, we find that it says that he did see Hashem's face. Now, how could that be? Moshe Rabbeinu is greater than Yecheskel. How could it be that Yecheskel saw part of Hashem that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't see? So I'm going to ask. So the answer is very nice. From Nachman of Breslov says, "Who's closer?" He asks, "Who's closer, a father and a son, or a slave and his master?" So everyone's going to answer. Obviously, a father with a son have a closer relationship. Right? Now, what kind of a relationship does a slave have with his master? That slave, he sits in front of him and he listens to what he has to say and he runs to do his bidding and he goes in and out of his chamber. Maybe even helps him take on office pajamas. He's a slave. He sees the master in all sorts of situations where other people don't. That's what a slave is. Right? But a son, so maybe a son doesn't come into the royal chamber to help his father. He's not a slave, right? And yet the son has a closer relationship with the father. So if you're a slave, you may be sitting in front of the king. So you see the king's face. But if you're a son and you're hugging your father, what do you see? You see his back. And that's why it would say about Moshe Rabbeinu, he doesn't see his face, he sees Hashem's back because he's closer to Hashem than Yecheskel, and he's hugging Hashem, as it were, so to speak, and therefore he sees the back of Hashem and not his face. Right? That's what happens when you hug someone. Okay. Now back to our original point. If Moshe Rabbeinu was obviously greater than Aaron, why is the Torah comparing the two of them? So I want to tell you something that happened to me recently. It was a few years ago, a friend of my wife's making bar mitzvah or Ramat B'Shemesh, and my wife said we need to go over there to on Shabbos to the Kiddush. So I said, okay. We walked over to the shul on Shabbos, and the father of my wife's friend, his name is Rabbi Shurin, and he is the head of a seminary, Midrash Rachel. And he's also the grandson of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. And I don't know if you know this, but if any of you had the good fortune to know a member of the Kamenetsky family, you'll know that you can't go 5 minutes without talking about Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. That's the way it is. Like, they're always talking about their grandfather. They love Rabbi Yaakov. They're very proud to be from Yaakov Kamenetsky. And that's 5 minutes, and then you get a story from Yaakov Kamenetsky. So we get to talking, and he says, I want to tell you something from my grandfather. I want to share a tremendous yesod that my grandfather told me. What was the yesod? He said, Rabbi Yaakov prefaced the yesod, the concept, by asking a question. And he quotes a medrash. What's the medrash? If Reuven would have known that Torah was going to write about the fact that he saved his brother's life, then he wouldn't have just told the brothers to put Yosef in the bar. He would have actually made sure to bring him back to his father. That's what the Medrash says. He would have gone out of his way to make sure to bring his brother back. If Aaron HaKohen, says the Medrash, would have known that the Torah was going to record the fact that he went out to the Midbar to greet his brother, then he would have gone out with a 4-piece band to welcome him back to Mitzrayim. If Boaz would have known, and here we get the Shavuos talking about Boaz, if Boaz would have known, Torah would record the fact that he gave Rus kali, which is not a very expensive type of food. He would have given her a way better meal. He would have given her a steak. He would have made her, I don't know, it would have been gewaldig. He would have made a barbecue for her, whatever it is. It would have been geschmack. And yet he gave her kali. Why? Because he didn't know. Says Yaakov says, I don't understand. You want to tell me that that Aaron HaKohen, Reuven from the Shvatim, and Boaz, these are people who are from the greatest people of Kai. So you want to tell me that they would have acted differently if they knew that their actions are going to be recorded? It doesn't make sense. In fact, one of the great things about Rabbi Grossman, probably by now most of you read the book, one of the great things about Rabbi Grossman is the fact that he acts the same way no matter where he is, if he's in public or if he's in private. He acts the same way. You could catch him in his house. He's the same person as he is when he's talking to the prime minister. So it doesn't make sense to say they would have acted differently. What's the Torah teaching me? There's a verse, there's a lesson over here. So Rabbi Yaakov, I'll tell you something. The pshat's like this. A lot of times people think if you're doing something for your family, it's something small. Hey, yeah, you go to your airport to pick up your family. You pick up your brother at the airport. What's the big deal? It's not a big deal. You don't look at what you do for your family as something worthy of making a big deal out of it. It's just, my brother was, there was a fight in the family, so I had to help my brother to help my brother. My brother's coming back from out of the country. I'm going to go greet him at the airport. It's not a big deal, right? Nomi's related to me. Let me help Rus. It's a family thing. What's the big deal, right? But the thing is, they missed the point here in the sense I didn't realize that the small thing they were doing was actually a very, very huge thing, right? They didn't realize that they were setting the stage for the future of Klal Yisrael with a small action. If Aaron HaKohen, right, he didn't realize what he was going to do. He was going out there to bring his brother to Mitzrayim, and that was the beginning of the Geula. And this is, going to be the biggest Nisim, and then Matan Torah and Har Sinai, Kriyas Yamsuf. He didn't realize. It was a huge thing. He thought, I'm just doing a little chesed for my brother. What's the big deal? I pick him up at the airport. He didn't realize his brother was coming to redeem the Jewish people. This is the greatest moment in the history of the world. He thought it was something small. Boss thought, I'm just doing a small chesed for an almana, for a giyaris. What's the big deal? Little did he realize that right now he's going to marry, and there's going to be the grandmother of Mashiach, and it's going to be the beginning of David HaMelech, and he didn't realize it's a huge thing. So that's what it is. So what do you see from here, says Rabbi Yaakov? We see from here that the small things that people do in life make a huge difference. That's what you see. People think they tend to underestimate it. They don't make a big deal out of small things. But the truth is that the small things a lot of times have more, import than the big things people do. People think this is a big thing, so let me focus on this. No, but the small thing, a lot of times, small things have huge impact. And that's a very interesting thing that we find, that small things a lot of times have huge impact. And this is Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky's word. Says Rabbi Yaakov, sure to me, listen, I want to tell you something. That was my grandfather. That's what he said. And I have to, then he told me, he said, let me bring this home to you and explain it to you, not just with a word from the Medrash, but with a personal story that happened to me, says Rabbi Yaakov, to his grandson. And his grandson was very happy to hear a personal story because he loved his grandfather very much. And he loved hearing personal stories from his grandfather. Well, who wouldn't? Especially it's Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, he's your grandfather. Who wouldn't want to hear personal stories from your grandfather, right? So what was the story? So he says, when Rabbi Yaakov was a young man, he came to America to fundraise for his yeshiva back in Lithuania. So what happened? He finds out a very interesting thing. He's not a good fundraiser. Okay, now you should know, it's not a simple thing to be a fundraiser. My father likes to say that in order to be a good fundraiser, you actually have to like taking money from people. It's a thing. If you like taking money, you can be a good fundraiser. Also, it helps if you reach the point where you literally believe that what you're doing is that what you're doing is you're offering them something which they should want to be part of. If you believe that, then that's really the secret of fundraising. But anyways, the point is he wasn't good at it. It's hard to do. It's hard to go to people and ask for money. But Yaakov found he wasn't a good fundraiser. So it looks like he's going, he tells his grandson, it looks like I'm going back to Lithuania. Okay, so what happens? So someone calls me up. His name is Rabbi Wogelenter. Interesting, by the way, side point. It's Rabbi Wogelenter, who's the Rav in Seattle. Side point, I just did an interview with the podcast with Rabbi Jeff Wogelenter and his son Aaron. You can look it up online. Interesting conversation I had with Rabbi Jeff, who was the Rav for 35 years back in San Diego. Great people. And this is a story about his father, his family, the Wogelenter family. So Rabbi Yaakov gets a call from the Wogelenter family in Seattle. And the Rav over there, Rabbi Wogelenter, is taking a sabbatical year. And he wants Rabbi Yaakov to take him over in the shul for 6 months. Would you mind pushing off your return to Europe and come to Seattle and be the Rav in the shul? So Rabbi Yaakov says, great. He travels to Washington and he meets with the rabbi. He likes him. He offers him the job, 6 months, being the rabbi of the shul. He works for 6 months. The rabbi likes him very much. And after the 6 months is over, Rabbi Wogelenter says to him, listen, I don't want you to go back to Lithuania. I want you to stay over here in my shul. I want you to work for me, be my sister rabbi, be part of my kehillah. So here Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky shows his chacham. He says, listen, it's not going to work. I am a person with a big personality. You're a person with a big personality. It's not going to work. I don't want to be your sister rabbi. I'm going to go back to Lithuania. So he's about to go back to Lithuania. And what happens? So hold on 1 second. So he's going to go back to Lithuania. And what happens is that he gets another call. He gets another call from who? From Rabbi Wogelenter's brother. And he says he's a sheikh in Toronto. He calls him up. He says, listen, the rabbinical position just opened up. And maybe you'll be interested in moving to Toronto. And then Rabbi Yaakov moves down to Canada. He brings his family over and he was saved from the Holocaust, right? Very beautiful. And all because of what? What was the cause of the fact that Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was saved? Very simple. That Rabbi Wogelenter did something very small. He picked up the phone, he made a phone call, and he said, listen, there's a position that was opening up. Maybe you'll come to Toronto and you'll be a Rav. And he was a Rav. And then he brought his whole family over. In the end, he stayed in America. And think about it, because how many yeshivas and educational institutions were established because Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky came to America, and his children and his grandchildren, and they all opened up yeshivas and tremendous amounts of things. How many thousands of children were educated all because of that one phone call? All because of one small act. That was what Yaakov Kamenetsky told his grandson. It's a very big thing. Small acts are a very big thing. So I'm sure he says to me, now I want to tell you, that was my grandfather. He gave over to your side, the Medrash. Then he told me his own part. Now I want to bring it home with my own story, he says to me. To bring it home, you understand, from me, from my life. I took my grandfather's idea and I applied it to my own life. Listen to this. He says, so I have a school, I have a seminary, and I got a phone call from a different seminary shortly after the year started. And the principal of the seminary says, listen, Rabbi Shur, I wonder if you can do me a favor. So I said, what's the favor? So she says, we have a policy in the school that in the beginning of the year, there's always 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 girls who come in. They're not really interested in learning so much, and they're coming to have a good time. So usually at the beginning of the year, we find the people who are making trouble, and we usually show one of them the door, and that a lot of times helps us to calm down the situation. People realize they're not there just to play, and they calms down. She says, okay, so what's wrong? This is your policy. What's the problem? She said, the problem is we made a mistake. What was the problem? We kicked out the wrong girl. We realized we made a mistake. It wasn't a ringleader. It was a person who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because we made a mistake. So he says, okay, no, so you made a mistake. You realize you made a mistake. What's the problem? Great. She says, the problem is that we now have to climb down from the very high tree that we climbed up on. So he says, okay, so what do you want to do? So she says, what I want to do is like this. I want to offer this girl a deal that she could go under house arrest, as it were, stay by someone for a few weeks. And if she behaves herself, she can go back to school. So I wanted to know, would you be willing to serve as the parole officer for this girl for a few weeks, have her move into your house? He says, listen, what do I have a house with a lot of children, one more, one less. What do I care? I have to ask my wife. Let me ask my wife. So he asks his wife. She's like, yeah, sure, no problem. So the girl moves into the house. and she stays with the family for 3 weeks. Okay. So what happens? She sleeps in his daughter Chani's room. Chani was in 4th grade at the time. They had a great time, great relationship together. Girl was 18. Chani was in 4th grade. They hit it off. And that was what happened. He said, I didn't even realize the 3 weeks passed. They're going back to school. End of story. Everything's fine. All right. Then what happened? So what happened was, a number of years later, he tells me, I'm in the year for my father. I'm visiting America. While I'm there, one of my students is driving me around. She says to me, one of the students is getting married tonight. Would you want to come to the chuppah? I'm sure it'll make them very happy if you come to the chuppah. So I said, I actually got the invitation, but I wasn't planning on going because I'm in the year. So she said, no, but I think you should come to the chuppah because it's really going to make them happy if you come to the chuppah. So I said, fine. Okay. So I drive up to the hall and I come to the chuppah, and they were so happy that I came that they gave me a bracha under the chuppah. And okay, I finished the bracha, I finished the chuppah, and great. We turn around and everyone dances out of the hall, and I'm starting to leave, and suddenly this girl comes over to me and she says to me, Rabbi Shurin, do you remember me? And I'm looking at her and I was embarrassed. I don't remember. It happens to be, but
it's me.
And I was embarrassed. I didn't remember. Why? Because, she's my student probably. I had probably taught her. And how could it be I don't remember? So this happens once in a while. We teach a lot of people over the years. It happens to me. You don't always remember everyone. And I'm like, look, she's like, listen, don't worry. Don't be embarrassed. You don't remember me. I only stayed in your house for 3 weeks. There's no reason for you to remember. It was only 3 weeks. I'm like, of course I remember you. But she says to me, I want to thank you. And I'm like, thank me for what? She's like, for saving my life. She's like, what are you talking about? He's like, what are you talking about? So she says, listen, remember those 3 weeks when I stayed by you and you let me come to your house, the family, help me. And you know what happened? So I said, what happened? She said, I was roommates with Chani, your daughter, your 10-year-old daughter, 4th grade. And we were talking at night. We used to talk till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. She's like, I didn't know that. She's like, yeah. And anyways, one night we're talking about how people do things and they feel the pressure to conform because of their neighbors, because of their friends. And Chani says to me, these words of wisdom that stayed with me the rest of my life. She says, you don't have to do anything for anyone else, she says. You just have to do things for Hashem. That's it. That was what your 4th grader said to me. And that line helped me become frum. So I want to thank you for giving me, for changing my life. So Rabbi Shruin says to me, what did I do, Red? I didn't do anything. It's not like I changed her life. So I let her stay at my house. They had a whole bunch of kids. Nothing happened. She helped my wife. No. Small things change the world. That's the way it works. You do a small thing, you do not know what is going to come out from that small thing. You have no idea. Our job is not to know what's going to come out. We have to do the actions, right? So back to the beginning. So why does the Torah mention Amram and Yocheved? It says Rav Moshe Feinstein. Many times we have children. They're smart. We find ourselves overwhelmed by their chachmas, and we think, wow, this kid's going to be great. So Rav Moshe, don't count your chickens. Your job is just beginning now. Sure, your kid has potential. He has talents. It's wonderful, but that's only his first step in his life. You know when we're going to write your name in the Torah? When your job is over, as it were. When your kids are grown up and they've become a Moshe and Aaron, then your job is over. Then we're going to write your name in the Torah. But life is a constant battle. It's a constant situation, potential versus risk. And our job is done when it's done. It's not done, at the beginning. It's done when the kid grows up and we were successful in raising the child. We can't be satisfied with the situation until we really see we've actually succeeded in raising children who are credit to Klal Yisrael. Then we know the job is done. Which brings us to our second question. Why did the Torah compare Moshe ben Aaron and Kohen? Are they on the same level? Is that possible? Can that be? So Moshe, yes. Why? For 2 reasons. One, first reason, something that everyone says, and it's a simple truth. Moshe and Aaron were the same. Why were Moshe and Aaron the same? Because both of them reached their entire potential. That's the bottom line. If you reach your entire potential, and this is something that everyone knows, as long as you reach your potential, That's what Hashem expects from you. That's it, no more. You reach your potential. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't need anything else from you. You don't have to be able to Kanievsky. You don't have to be able to Youngres. You need to reach your potential. If you maxed your potential, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're like Moshe Rabbeinu Aaron Cohen. That's what I wanted from you. That's what I want. That's what you need to do. You don't need to be more than that. The second Yesod, and in my opinion, the one that's more fun, every person on the team contributes in a way that's invaluable. Right? Take a shul, for example. The main person is the Rav or the Chazan, right? But if there's a rabbi or if there's a Chazan, you have health guard in the Fifth Avenue synagogue, and nobody comes to hear him at Slichas, then what's he worth? He's health guard in an empty room. It doesn't mean anything. It only means something if the room is full of people coming to your health guard. If you come, you have the best speaker in the world. I don't know, whoever you think is the best speaker in the world, right? I don't know who we have. I like asking my class sometimes. Give me a list of the 5. Who are the 5 best speakers? We asked 10 best speakers. It's interesting. A lot of times they tell me. I said, "What are the common denominator between all the 10 best speakers?" It's funny. A lot of times they tell me the names. I say it's interesting. They're not necessarily yeshivish. It's a funny thing. They're great speakers, not necessarily yeshivish. It's a funny thing. The great speakers are the ones who wear their hearts on their sleeve. They allow their heart. They show their vulnerabilities to people. Those are the greatest speakers. It's funny, but those are the people who automatically, when you ask people who are the greatest speakers, those are the people that are going to tell you. The ones who open up and they share themselves of their personal lives, their challenges, their struggles. They share themselves. Those are the people Klal Yisrael connect with and consider the greatest speakers. Anyways, so if you have a situation, we have this great person, this amazing speaker, this phenomenal, orator. But nobody is there to listen to him. So how does it help? He's only worth as much as the people listening to him, which means that every person in the room is just as great as the person speaking, because without that person, the speaker is not really coming. He's not doing anything. He's not adding anything. So the bottom line is the same goes for every member of the shul, no matter how small a contribution they seem to be making, right? Like here, Mr. Shashua, right? Rebbetzin Joyce over here. Is putting together this incredible thing all the time. She works so hard. Everyone knows she's she's putting it together. So they say, okay, she's the boss. She's the one. But she knows without everybody coming, we have 118 participants right now. If they had 118 participants, she wouldn't be able to do it, because if no one's coming, so what's she doing? She's getting speakers, nobody's going to come. You understand? That's the way it works. I'll tell you a story, personal story. Speaking of personal stories, when I was a kid, my father's side, we lived in Borough Park. My father's side, there wasn't enough shiurim at night for Balabatim. So he decided to open up a shir. He called it Nachas. And he started bringing speakers to speak. And he brought the first speaker that he brought, he was Rabbi Tauber to speak. I don't know if you remember Rabbi Tauber, all of Shalom. He brought Rabbi Tauber from Muncie to speak, and the room was packed. The shul that he did it was packed. Everyone came. It was amazing. Next week, he also brought a speaker. The room was half full. And after that, it went down, down, down. Every week, and he brought good speakers, but people didn't come. And eventually, I told him, I said, it's not happening. People aren't coming. Forget it. Don't bring them. You're wasting your time. You're working so hard. It's not happening. And then he stopped. It was an idea before its time. It was way before Torah any time. It was before. It was before its time. People weren't coming and he was being the best speakers, but it doesn't matter. You can have the best speakers, but if people aren't coming, it's not worth anything, because you need both. And that is why everyone involved is on the same level as Moshe Rabbeinu, because without Klal Yisrael, what is Moshe Rabbeinu? He's a shepherd without a flock. You understand, everybody? Without every person who's part of the shir, the drops of inspiration, what do we got? Everyone's a drop of inspiration. We have inspiration, but no drops. You need everyone. You need all the drops, all the droplets. You need everybody part of it. Without that, what do you got? You got nothing. And that's what Moshe Feinstein is coming to tell us. And that's the vote with Moshe Rabbeinu. The Torah is saying Moshe Rabbeinu are the same. Why are they the same? They're the same because you need both. You know, Moshe Rabbeinu goes to speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Shemayim, and he's living in heaven. He's not married because he's too holy, and you need Aaron Cohen who goes around Klal Yisrael making peace between people. You need both of them. Without the other, what do we got? Not perfection. But with Aaron Cohen there to add a special part, the machane is complete. And that's why the Torah equates them, because both contribute something priceless. And every single one of these the same way. There are leaders in every group, and there are social leaders, and there are popular people. Without everyone there, where's the popularity? There are rabbis and teachers and everything, and it's all important, but without every person who comes to hear, what is it worth? It's meaningless. This is Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky's Yisoy with a proof, with an addition from Moshe Feinstein. Here we go back to 1985, to the Gedolim who passed away in 1985, but they're gone, but they're not forgotten. And the Yisodis that they gave us are still as valuable and still as applicable today as it was back when I was a kid. So that's Rabbi Yaakov's Yisoy. I want to finish off with two little points. Yeah. Okay. You ready, everyone? Two little points. One is the following. So there was this guy. He was Baal Tshuva, and you're learning in Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim. And one day he gets a call from his cousin, and she says, "Listen, I'm she calls him Barry. Barry, I want to tell you, my father died." She says, and I want you to come to the Levaya. So now Barry he has a little bit of a quandary because he remembers this family, and he knows that the family is very, very leftist, and they're very, very religious. And Barry's like a Baal Tshuva. He's like a fresh Baal Tshuva, and fresh Baal Tshuvas, and you don't know what to do, and should I go, and how can I not go, and it's going to be Chil Hashem, Rabbi, and he doesn't know what to do. Anyways, in the end, Barry says, he was so nice to me when I got to Israel, back when I had a lot of hair, and I had sandals, and I should really go. So Barry decides to go, and he ends up picking up and he goes down to the moshav where they live, or the kibbutz, whatever it was, and he gets it. This kibbutz is so Hashomer Tzir, like they're so leftist, they make Hashomer Tzir like seem from. That's how kibbutz. How this is like the kind of kibbutz it was. So he gets there, and when he gets to the place where they're doing the levaya, he sits down in the crowd, and he watches, and it was just not so much of a great funeral. They said funny things, and like Yiskadav, Shmei Ha'adam Hagadol, things like that. And he didn't feel great about it. He didn't want to leave. And I'm like, Chil Hashem. Anyways, after it was over, so the cousin says, Barry, do me a favor. We're not so thrilled with the whole ceremony. Could you speak a little bit and talk a little bit about our father, and also maybe, just say some Tehillim and Kaddish. So Barry says, you know what? Okay. And he does that. He says, and he gets up and he says, "Come to Tehillim," and he says Kaddish, and he speaks about the uncle, and that was it. It was very small, short. And then he left and he went back to Yerushalayim. Now 2 days later, he gets a phone call. His cousin on the phone, and she says, "Listen," Barry, I got to tell you something. He says, "What are you telling me?" So she says, "I got to tell you a very interesting thing, pretty crazy." He says, "What?" She says, my brother, the botanist. He says yeah, of course. She has a brother who's a botanist. Now, it's interesting. In our world, the world is a fascinating thing, because there's always people in the world who like to do interesting things. For example, I myself have no interest in botany. I have no interest in this. I'm not interested in plants. It doesn't talk to me. Animals don't talk to me. It doesn't speak to me. When I went to the monkey farm with my kids, and the monkeys were climbing on my shoulders, all I wanted was them to get off my shoulders. And other people, they love it. They love the monkeys. They're so happy to have monkeys on. I want the monkeys off. You understand? There's some people, their whole life is animals. They love it. So that's why Kadosh Baruch Hu makes the world. That there's something for everyone. Everyone's drawn to some other thing. I like writing. That's what it is. Okay. So this guy's a botanist, and he always said that when he dies, he wants to be cremated, and he wants them to spread his ashes on the ground that he loves so much. So she says, "Listen, my brother, he's an atheist. He doesn't believe in Hashem. He wants to be cremated. But we come up from the Levaya, and he's sitting there in his chair that he loves, the chair that he came back from Africa for the Levaya. He's sitting there, and he says, I loved Barry's speech. I loved it. He said, I lack Kaddish, that Tehillim. I don't know. It touched me. You know what I want? When I die," he says, "I want to be buried in a talus." They're like, "What?" He says, "Yes, that's what I want. Change my mind. I know I always said I want to be cremated, but I changed my mind. I want to be buried in a talus." They're like, "What? From a kapitel Tehillim and a Kaddish?" He says, "Yes, that there was something about what Barry did really touched me. That's what I want." They're like, "Okay." He's like, "By the way, do any of you know where my talus is? From my bar mitzvah?" They say, "No." He says, "Could you find it?" They say, "We'll try." So he says, the next day we're sitting there again. And again, my brother says that Levaya and Barry and the Tehillim and the Kaddish, it touched me. We're like thinking, what are you talking about? It's a tiny thing. He said Tehillim, so what? No. I need my talus. I want to be buried. When I die, he's 33 years old. He's talking about death. When I die, I want to be buried like a Jew in a talus. Could somebody find my talus? So she says, so one of us go to find the talus. I go looking for the talus. And we find the talus buried in the linen closet in the basement somewhere. We bring it upstairs, so excited because my brother's so excited. We don't know why, because again, nothing happened. It wasn't even like a big deal. It was like a little speech. You spoke about my father, and you said Kaddish, and you said to him, and a big deal, but no, it was a huge thing for him. And my brother takes the talus. He takes the talus, and he opens it up, and he's smiling from ear to ear. He opens it up, and he spreads the talus all over him, like he can't get over it, like a blanket. Anyways, so we're looking at my brother. We can't understand what's going on. She says, and then Barry, I had to tell you what happened next. My brother, the botanist, she says, passed away. 33 years old, passed away. He passed away like a Jew who wanted to be buried with a talus in the ground and not cremated like a goy. All because of a kapitel tehillim and a kaddish. That's the beauty of small things. I want to finish with one final story, everybody. And I hope you trust you're going to walk out of today with like a really, go around, do all the little things for everybody else that the small things. It doesn't have to be big, Keep a lot of your ticket for yourself, but, the small things. So what I want to tell you, one last story. I was coming to the mirror one morning, and a friend of mine comes over. He says, I got to tell you a story, he says. A few days ago, I was standing outside the mirror, and this guy comes over to me. He's an African. He's from Nigeria. So first I started asking him, you get those emails from Nigeria? You're the prince from Nigeria, got $20 million for you. Anyways, no. So he says to me, are you a Torah student? I said, yeah, I learned here in the yeshiva. He says, amazing. I am visiting Israel from Nigeria, and I would like to convert to Judaism. This Nigerian guy. So I say to him, listen, Tzaddik, that's beautiful, but it doesn't work like that. To convert to Judaism, it's not like a 1, 2, 3 step process. It's like a few years, and we dissuade people. We don't encourage people to join. It's a whole thing, and they don't even live here. How are you going to do that? It's a beautiful sentiment, and I applaud you. And I have a better idea. Instead of joining the Jewish people like that, why don't you start keeping the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, and that will be just fine. So he said, he hears what I'm saying. He says, okay, I hear you. All right, fine. I'm not going to convert. He says, "What can you do me a favor?" I said, "Sure. What can I do for you?" He says, "I have a certain amount of money I brought with me from Nigeria. All my life savings, $1,000. Could you give it? I want to give it to you, and you could give it to tzedakah. I don't know who to give it to in Israel. You could give it to tzedakah." So I said, "You want to give out your life saving to tzedakah? What kind of a guy is this?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "All right, listen. It's very expensive to live, to get around Israel. Here as a tourist, you're going to be here for a few more days. Keep some of the money for yourself. I'll give some of it to charity. So he keeps $200 and he gives me the rest of the money. He says $800. Please give it to charity to worthy people." I said, "Okay." Again, there's a regular bacher in the mirror. Okay. So then the guy says to him, "One more thing." And the bacher says, "Yes, what is it?" He says, "Do me a favor," he says. "Please give me a blessing. Give me a blessing." I said, "I'm a regular guy. I'm not a tzaddik. I'm not a righteous man. I'm just a regular guy." He says, "I want you to give me a blessing. Give me a blessing." So you learn Torah, right? You're a Torah scholar. You learn Torah, you learn Talmud. Give me a blessing. So I said, "Okay." So I reach over to him. He bends down in front of me, and I put my hands on his head, and I say, I gave a bracha. You should be zeichet to fulfill your tafkid in this world, whatever that may be. Help the Klal Yisrael, keep the Shevetz Menach, whatever it is. The guy gets down on the pavement outside the Mir Yeshiva. He lies flat on the pavement. He starts to cry because someone who learns Torah gave him a bracha. You understand this, everybody? He appreciated the small thing. We, a lot of times, we don't appreciate it. Like, oh, you learn Torah, Yeshiva Bachar, what are you doing? You're wasting your life. We don't understand this. A person who learns Torah, this guy got it. The Nigerian got it. He understands what it is to learn Torah. He wanted a bracha. And when he got a bracha from a person who learns Torah, he lay on the floor and he cried because of it. That's the godless, everybody. You understand? Yeah. Maybe think, what do I do already? I learned a little Torah. No. This guy understands it. You should for sure should understand it. So I leave you with that message, everybody. Go out there. It's a beautiful world. We all have the chance. Every person could do small things for other people. Let's go out there and maximize our yichaylos, our strengths. Whatever we could do, let's do it. A lot of times you don't have to do something, just smile at somebody. Be there for another person. Have patience for someone. Be nice to them. Make them feel good. You don't even know what it's worth in Shemayim. We have no idea what these things are worth. Let's just do our best to help Klal Yisrael every way we can. Small, big, medium. We have to remember, if Boaz would have known, he would have given Russ a steak. If Aaron Akar would have known, he would have brought out the 4-piece pan. And if Reuven would have known, he would have brought his brother home to his father. Okay, so now we know. So let's go out and do it. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Hatzlacha with everything, and keep on doing great things. Klal Yisrael needs all the inspiration it can get. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Rabbi Seltzer, do you have a few minutes if I open it up for questions?
I have a few minutes. I'll tell you, the computer that I'm using for Zoom is about, how many minutes do we need?
Well, I'll ask ladies if they have any questions. You can unmute yourself.
It has like another 5 minutes of juice on it. So we can do a few minutes of questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
If anybody has any questions, ladies, please unmute yourself now or put it in the chat. Paulette, do you have a question for us? Any questions? Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much. Okay, we're getting all of that.
Is this recorded?
Yep, and I'm going to send it to you.
Excellent.
Any questions, ladies, before Rabbi Seltzer glows? I would really enjoy hearing sometime what it's like to speak to all the wonderful people he meets. That's for you, Rabbi Seltzer. Rabbi Seltzer, you still there?
I think not.
You're not on my screen. Rabbi Seltzer?
Hello? I'm back. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I had to change to a different computer. Okay.
Okay.
Rabbi Seltzer,
Yes.
you hear me?
Yes.
Zilio Spiegel, Chaim Shlomo's father.
Hello. Hi. Shalom Aleichem.
Yeah, thank you. I got the
Your voice is not good. Do you want to address the question again, please?
Is there what's that book I got? Not going to say hello because I haven't spoken to Rav Seltzer. Used to be a friend of my son's, and used
Yes.
to come to our house for Shabbos sometime.
Right.
So anyway,
Very good
I appreciate
memories.
Your speech was beautiful. And,
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll try to get my son to get the second copy of Zar Shimshon.
Okay. Thank you.
Any chance of incredible
Anyway,
come up with
you be well. And,
Yes, Mr. Shashua. What?
just came up in the chat now, Rabbi Seltzer. Someone's asking any chance of Incredible 3.
I'll tell you, it's a funny thing. Rabbi Wallace actually came to my house because he wanted to start working on Incredible 3, but he only came one time and he didn't come again. And the truth is, I don't think there's enough material for an Incredible 3. And if there is, it's not stuff he told that could be really, I don't know. He told me something about writing a book and putting it in a safe until after 120. I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't count on it. But Baruch Hashem, there are so many other great people in the world to write about. So we're gonna, Rabbi Grossman, I hope you all get that book. That's a phenomenal book, Living Legend. How did the Zera Shimshon come about? That's if you read Zera Shimshon, I write in the introduction how it came about. It started because there's a person from Mount Beit Shemesh who lives near the Grove. His name is Nigel Kravitz. And Nigel Kravitz, he told me a story about his father-in-law who was sick and he was not doing well. And the farm store owner in Manchester suggested he learn the Sefer Zera Shimshon, which was out of print because he said it's a segula And so he started learning it and it got better. So I wrote the story in Hamodia, and that led to another article, and it led to a book in English and another book in English, and led to a lot of nice things. It all started with a story outside the Gra on a Friday night in 2007. See what a small thing could do? A small story leads to Sfarim. Unbelievable. How do you get to meet so many people to write about? I'll give you an example. So just a few days ago, Rabbi Itzhak Khoury, who's my neighbor who just had a baby after 21 and a half years, came to my house to tell me his story. And he wanted me to write his story. So I just sent it to Hamodia yesterday, 17 pages. They're going to have to cut it. It's a big story. So hopefully we'll see. They're just sending me an email right now. I'll tell you what they said. Tell you what they said over here. Yeah, anyways, the point is that they're going to do it probably in, you're gonna do it in a two-part series maybe, but that's just an example. Somebody came over to me, but people are a lot of times send me emails or call me up or stop me to tell me stories, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu keeps them coming to me. I think he feels they're important for Klal Yisrael, so he just they keep on coming. I don't know. I what can I say? It's just something that's been happening for the last 15, 17 years. So it just keeps on happening.
Well, they
Ongoing.
give us inspiration, Rabbi.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm inspired.
Well, we are too.
Yeah.
Any other
Anything
questions?
else?
Ladies, anything else? Would you like to ask the Rabbi? No?
Okay. Listen, everybody, it's great seeing you. Oh, you really enjoyed Amani Yerushalayim? Thank you. It was great. It was great writing them. That's actually coming out in Hebrew very soon. Amani Yerushalayim is coming out in Hebrew. So you can buy it for your grandchildren. If you have Israeli grandchildren, you can buy it for them. It's very special. And that's coming out in Hebrew very soon. So, okay, everyone, it's great seeing you. Normally we see each other sometimes in the shir and, up on, you enjoyed the network. So did I. I liked writing it. It took me a year to write that book. I enjoyed writing it also. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. Shkoyach. Vivan Sliach. It's great seeing you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Kol Tov.
So much
Bye-bye.
drops of inspiration.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Kol Tov.
And thank you, Joyce.
Bye.
Ladies,
Have a good evening. Bye.
Joyce. Oh, wow.
Dr. Lisa.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you, Joyce.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Happiness, the
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joyce.
welcome. I hope you had a wonderful hug, and thank you, everybody. And it's a shame.
Thank you.
Wonderful to be back.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Thank you. And I just signed up into Rabbi Nachman Seltzer's podcast, which I didn't know he did. So thank
How
you.
do you get that?
I just went to Spotify and typed in Rabbi Nachman Seltzer, and it came right up.
Right.
Think Torah is the other way to look for it. Think
Okay.
Torah.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, ladies. Have a great week.
Thank you too, Joyce.
Who's the speaker next week?
The speaker next week is Dr. Lisa Aiken, a psychologist,
Oh,
and
wonderful.
pressing us on achieving happiness. The sky's the limit, so you don't want to miss that.
Oh, no.
Next week,
Sure
Mrs.
not.
Bye, ladies.
Okay,